Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Ray, for the great introduction. I'm really excited about today's session. I think it maybe speaks to each of our hearts, and the more that I'm looking at our poll results, I'm going to go ahead and share those with you now if you participated. Um, we're looking at about 36% of people somewhere in the middle of feeling productive and unproductive. So it's difficult sometimes making this transition as we have moved into this remote work. So I hope that you find some information useful today. As Ray had mentioned, we will certainly make sure all this information is kept in the recording and shared with you. So I'm going to go ahead. My name is Brianna Larimer, and I also work with Missouri Training Institute under Ray and Dewey. Very, very fortunate to be able to do so. And I've been there just over a year now. So if we haven't met yet, I certainly look forward to the opportunity to meet you. And so it's going to be an interesting transition because I'm actually running my own PowerPoint today. So, and my computer is not wanting to cooperate, of course. I'm sure we've all had some of that happen. All right. So we talk about this idea of staying motivated when we work from home. It becomes very difficult. You know, our lives have changed dramatically. Maybe we have other people that are at home with us. We have kids, we have spouses. I can speak personally. My husband's a radio guy, and so I'm hearing a lot of loud noise as I work, which isn't what I am used to hearing. So I want to just kind of start off. Again, you all are familiar with most of our team. These are the upcoming sessions that Ray had mentioned. Resiliency in the face of setbacks, that's our next session, and Ray will be the presenter for that one. I'll be facilitating as well. That is a free session open to extension. And then we have one that is open to extension and the public, May 5th, 12th, and 9th. So it's a three-part series, and it's going to be tapping into your emotional intelligence. So if you have not taken an EQI 2.0 assessment and you're just kind of interested in seeing where am I at on that, the assessment is included with that fee plus those 3 sessions. But let's go to this. I really want to know, this is your time. I want to hear from you as we talk about today's topic, as we talk about motivation. What helps you stay on task at the office that's missing at your house? So if you can take a few moments, I'm going to turn it over to Ray for that chat. If you can send in your responses to her, think about just everything in general that you may have had working at the office that you don't have now working at home.
Good internet connections. Things that we don't have at home, maybe the coworkers, a change of scenery. Let's see, walk-in customers. So it sounds like variety for a lot of you. I empathize with the lack of large monitors. And I don't know if you're like me, but I had more than one. So I see it right there, 2 monitors. Thanks, Connie. The quiet environment. So these are coming in great. No distractions. Christy says no distractions in the office. How about an office space with all your stuff, all your materials? Thanks, Jennifer. Certainly. The printer. Yeah, I had to switch to an old black and white printer myself. So thanks for that. The ability to scan and send things, Dave says. So lots of similarities there when we think about our technology. Walls and doors. Thanks, Barb. Although I'm sure you're not hearing those tires flip either, so that might be okay. And Jeff says his files, he's missing his files. Chandra says no cats. All right, so no cats in the office. All right, thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you guys for those responses. Certainly. You know, I think when I stopped and as I was putting together today's curriculum, I considered really 3 big areas that I think all of us may relate to a little bit, and I heard in some of those responses. The first one is a regimented schedule. And so for me, I always laughed because when I joined MTI, I am certainly not the morning person. Ray and Dewey are always there before I am. I come in a little bit later and stay later. But having that regimented schedule was certainly a big change. And then I think another piece to that was the social interaction. I am really struggling right now with not having Ray and Dewey and even John Myers, if he's on today. He's right across the hall from me. And so having that social interaction was important every time I came to the office. And the final piece that I really, and research is suggesting, there were a few different places I had looked that said the accountability piece. So if you have a boss that is physically present, chances are you were holding yourself a little bit more accountable. And so in those three areas, as I thought about the regimented schedule, the social interaction, the accountability, it really broke out into two specific areas. In my mind, motivation and self-discipline. And so as we talk about this motivation piece, I want to go through exactly what motivation is. And so I think understanding it, and most of us already may, but just breaking it down again to what is it, all right? And why is it such a crucial piece right now more than ever as we are continuing to work remotely? And so when we think about it, understand that motivation is going to refer specifically to the whys of our behavior. All right, so these are the things that are activating and directing and sustaining us. And so how are we able to keep those items up when we feel like everything else around us is out of our control or is all over the place, and certainly not what we're used to. At the end of the day, it's the reason we do what we do. And so as we kind of tap into that, I'm going to challenge you throughout today's session to take a moment and to consider what are some areas that you can kind of take control over when it comes to your own motivation. I want to present this. Most of you may be familiar with it, some of you may not, but I want us to take a good look and give ourselves a break, because Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs here indicates, as we see at the bottom, that we have certain needs as human beings. For our needs to be met, it has to kind of go in this order. And so if we aren't doing it in this order, unfortunately, that motivation doesn't really correlate. And so with COVID-19 right now and everything that has happened throughout our nation and globally, some of us are just struggling to get the physiological needs met. I know a lot of friends and family and people who are struggling right now to be able to provide food because jobs are gone. Safety and security is gone. We don't know what's going to happen. We're afraid to step outside of our doors. And so understand that as we think about our motivation, and going back to that poll that we did at the beginning, if you're feeling kind of somewhere in the middle or you're feeling unproductive, again, give yourself a break. All right, because we need to stop and figure out, where are we on this? What needs are not being met that we really need to attend to before we can dive a little deeper into that motivation piece. When we think of motivation in general, people are more motivated when it feels relevant to you. All right, and I think as we think through that, some of the work that we're doing right now, we may be asking ourselves, well, how in the world am I going to take my programming and turn it into a webinar? I think MTI, we've considered that as well. We've thought about how are we going to take a 6-hour training and turn it into something that can be presented in 1 hour, because let's admit, nobody wants to sit through a webinar that's more than 1 hour. And so how can we take things that are relevant to everyone else around us? And that's why we generated these Topic Tuesday topics. And this is motivating to us, because it gives us an opportunity to tie into probably a lot of things that everyone else is dealing with too. Motivation also happens more frequently when we have that sense of ownership and autonomy. And I think that this is where we can grow because we kind of have ownership over it right now. We are working remotely, and that gives us an opportunity to really dictate some things that maybe we couldn't in a regimented schedule in the office. And so I hope that as we think through this, we start kind of getting excited about this idea of controlling our own motivation. Oftentimes, as individuals, especially right now, we are inundating ourselves with these ideas, right? The innovation, the creativity. We are trying to come up with new ways to sustain ourselves and to sustain our organization, and we start overwhelming our brain. we start thinking we have too much to do. There's too many Zoom meetings. We need to have a meeting to have a meeting to have a meeting. And I'm going to ask you, when it comes to your motivation, you have to stop and you have to think, what's the most important thing for you to do right now? I think back to one of the examples that we use in our time management training, and you might have heard of the important urgent grid and the unimportant and not urgent grid. And I think a lot of times, especially when we are surrounded by family or kids, that we don't take the time to pause and to ask ourselves, is this urgent situation taking over the important situation, or what needs to take priority at this moment? Everything can't be important, right? It would be incredibly difficult to operate out of that. Maybe that's what we're used to in our daily work life, is that whirlwind that we operate out of. And so what is the most important thing for you to do right now? And if we can break it down, we can stop, we can pause, we can understand, hey, I got ownership over what my day is gonna look like. I have certain deliverables that need to be met. All right, what is the priority, or what's the order in which I will associate that importance for my organization's needs, for my own personal needs? And so again, not everything can be important. All right, I want to know from you now. I'm going to take a break. I want to give this time back to Ray to ask if we had any questions, but I also want to know, what might this temporary work situation be an opportunity to do? If you want to respond in the chat messages.
While I'm hanging out, waiting for some responses, there's opportunities now for me to catch up. And so that's what I'm seeing here. Learn new technology for programming, professional development. So we're glad about that. That's why we're all here today. Opportunities to be more innovative, thinking of new ways to do their jobs. So I love lots of technology, lots of, I'm seeing words like explore and develop and innovate. Again, catching up, resetting, nice. Evaluating, Barb says, good. Gidget says reflection, absolutely. Cleaning up the queue,
Yeah.
focus, yes. Right? Kind of learn, oh, somebody in a new job, that one went by too fast, I'll catch that up. Reorganizing e-files, excellent suggestion. All right, time to work on my Courtesy Counts curriculum. So again, many of us are using this as expanded time to catch up, innovate, personally and professionally grow in our jobs. So nice job.
Great work. Those are some great things to be working on right now. So I certainly think, as we look through this, we can sum this up in a few different categories. The first one is we have time to think ahead, right? For the first time, we are not stuck in this daily whirlwind. And so what is a way we can kind of keep that front, our front window here wide open for what we want to do as an individual within our organization, for our organization, for the department as a whole. We're thinking ahead. So maybe it is strategic planning. Maybe it is updating budgets or establishing metrics that you didn't previously have established. Maybe it's reading some university guidelines or policies to help you figure out where we're going to move forward from here. Now's the time. Now's the time to think ahead, to think about what is it that I can really do after we get out of this. Because understand that this situation, although it may be overwhelming right now, and you turn on any local news channel and it's only going to plague you even more, it's going to end eventually. And so we will have an opportunity to get back to our normal. And so what is it now that we can do to think ahead and to plan for the future? I'd also challenge you to think back. All right, a lot of times, again, you talk about the whirlwind that we're stuck in our normal space. If we're thinking back, what are some things that we want to take some quiet time to review maybe data that we had previously kind of left by the wayside. Maybe we want to look at collecting some new data based off of what we see from that old data. What has worked well for you and what hasn't? All right, so just taking some time maybe in some reflection and understanding where we have been and where you want to go, whether that's individually or as an organization as a whole. And so do know one thing though, as you think about thinking back, that rear view mirror should always be smaller. All right, think of a car, always be smaller than our front window, right? And so we want to be able to look ahead more than we want to be able to reflect on what didn't work right, or what needs improvement. I'm always the bright light kind of girl. I want to look towards what we're going to and get eager about that as opposed to being stuck in the past. I think this time will challenge us to really think deep. And so maybe, and I liked what I'd heard on our chat, maybe you take this time to think about what were some spring cleaning areas that you hadn't done yet. So I think of me. I have my inbox that is full of a million different emails that I really told myself I wanted to organize at some point when I have time. And so now you have time, right? You have an opportunity to think about those spring cleaning needs, to organize maybe your box folder or your drives, maybe to catch up on data entry, right? You have the time to do it, so think deep. I know some of us are maybe even taking this time to do some spring cleaning around our own house. And so it's certainly a good time to do that as well within those working hours. I'm gonna ask you to think across. All right, think across. And we are really good at doing this within Extension. We think about how can our work, or what can we do to help affect other people? And so this is the prime time to start developing those new ideas and take a chance. I think a lot of times we get worried about the what ifs, or we get caught up in the, well, what if this doesn't work? But now's the time to really think across, to be innovative, to create some new concepts that can help other people, right? What are some things that that you can do maybe to help another department within the organization? What are some things that you can do to brainstorm ways to help other people in the community? Use your team and use your own creativity during this time to kind of motivate you to think across. Another one I'll challenge you to do is to think growth. All right, I want you, and a lot of you mentioned this in your comments, we're taking this time for professional development. It may not be time that we ever have again to devote to this. And so think growth. Think of what are some ways in which you want to grow as an individual, and what are some ways in which you want to truly prove value as an individual within your organization, and what you can do to grow your own organization as a whole. So your department within our organization. Take that time to consider, what are some new webinars I want to do? Clearly you all have stepped out and branched into that. Maybe you want to look at some massive open online courses, right? Those are things that are available right now everywhere. Maybe it's TED Talks. Whatever it is for you, take the time to dive into it and really kind of grow your potential as an individual. I also think, and Marshall talks a lot about this, all right, we have to consider well-being right now. And not just our own well-being, but we need to think about the well-being of others. And so I certainly, I will tout Ray and Dewey. A lot of you probably know them, but I will tell you that they by far are the best supervisors I've had, because they've taken the time to sit and ask, Brianna, how are things going? If you've ever taken True Colors, I'll own it. I'm a blues blue. All right, so I have a lot of emotions, a lot of feelings, and sometimes for employees, you know, those feelings are real. And I think that they do an excellent job really checking in on me, but then also we check in on each other. And so it's got to be your well-being as an individual and for the other people around you. And the final thing I want to suggest with this is that we have the opportunity now to think now, right? We can think now about things that we couldn't consider before, that we didn't have the time to do before. And so understand, that's drafting upcoming announcements, right? That's maybe taking some time to learn digital, reaching out to Laura and asking, you know, what is this thing? How can we do some marketing techniques? And how can we get information out there that we didn't previously do? Things that we need to share with our community now. We want to do this. We want to connect. And so let's think now about the things that need to be done too. So I want to take a moment. Ray, did we have any questions that came in during that time?
It doesn't look like we have any questions right now. Okay. But thanks for the plug, Brianna.
Of course, of course. Here's the final thing as we think about this. All of this, all right, it's nothing if we're just thinking about it. It's got to be actually putting it into motion. So what are your goals related to it? And remember what I said at the very beginning, right? Our motivation is goal-oriented. So if we haven't created our goals, then how in the world are we going to stay on task or continue to motivate ourselves to stay on task? And so take some time and I write them down. You know, I had a mentor one time who asked me to write down 100 goals for the next 5 years. And then we had a whole process on how to kind of dwindle that down to 10 goals over the next year. And I'll tell you that doing it at first was incredibly overwhelming. And I didn't know where to start. I didn't know how to begin. But once we start recognizing that we, again, have that control over it, that, you know, there's full autonomy here on how you want to develop that, it gave me an opportunity to just flow. And I reached 100 and I got them down to 10. And then it really has helped me over the last year to stay focused on what it is I'm trying to do, because I see the bigger value. And so as I transition here, I just want to encourage you again. First off, with motivation, give yourself a break, right? As we talked about on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Some of us are just trying to meet some of those physiological and secure safety needs right now. I get it. At the same time, don't lose your momentum, right? Don't let the problems of the world right now really just weigh in on you. We all play a crucial role here in Extension. And I think that, that right now, again, as you saw, there's so many opportunities to really create our own plan and to motivate ourselves along the way, even if it's things we had never thought about before. The other piece I mentioned at the very beginning was the self-discipline piece. And understand that self-discipline is going to come in a lot of different ways, and some of us are, oh yes, you know, here it comes. But these are some practical tips, right? I'm going to break these out in the next few slides, but I want you to understand that it's incredibly important that we're creating a dedicated workspace, right? If you haven't done that already, then we're going to talk about doing that. I also think we need to set dedicated work hours. We need to get dressed. Okay, maybe a lot of us have partaken the first, I think we're going on 3 weeks now of working remotely. And so maybe the first week you did work in your pajamas, but we're going to talk a little bit about the benefit of getting dressed in the morning. Talking about taking breaks. And then I want at the end here really conclude with focusing on our top 3 and how do we identify those top 3. So the first one, all right, creating that dedicated workspace. I think when we consider separating home and work, right, it does become difficult when you are working remotely, but creating this dedicated workspace is going to help keep you organized. All right, it doesn't have to be this extravagant home office. All right, it doesn't have to be that. I think of one of my husband's colleagues. She works in radio as well, and she has set up her studio in a closet. And that is because she lives in a tiny apartment in Rhode Island, and that's the quietest place for her to work. It's also so that she can shut the door at the end of the day and work is done, right? That's how we create those boundaries around work and personal, is to be able to shut the door, say I'm done for today. So I'm curious from you all, where's the most creative places you've worked from? Go ahead and give us those responses in chat, and I'll turn it over to Ray for a minute.
The pantry?
Oh my goodness.
I think is what I think it says pantry, but I'm gonna go ahead and add the bedroom. All right. I had said earlier, mine is the right side, the left side of the dining table. My partner's is the right. Ooh, the grandkids' playroom. All right.
Lots of toys to play with.
Yep, the kitchen counter, so you have a standing desk. Great idea. Several people, the dining room table. Thanks, Teresa. Oh, Amy, yes, the patio table on my deck. And I'm in Kansas City sheltering in place, and it is a gorgeous sunny 70 here. The deck. I can work from anywhere. I can work from my couch. I moved to my treadmill. Great idea. The driveway for outside videos. By the window. Oh, somebody just took over the third bedroom. The front porch. The desk in my bedroom. Thanks, Amber. All right, these all sound like we're adhering to those rules of quarantine and not going anywhere. So great responses, guys.
Yeah, excellent. Some really creative places. Yes. I love the treadmill one. If I had one, I'd certainly take that on. Yeah, now is the time again to be creative. You know, one of the things I'll ask that maybe we consider when it comes to our creativity, where we're creating our workspace, be careful creating your workspace in the same place that you sleep. And the only reason I say that is because it will be very, very tempting to let's just take a nap, or let's, have our laptop on us in our bed. It gets hard to stay motivated when we do have that space dedicated. We want to separate rest time from our work time. And it's a mental thing. It actually comes down to our mindset, and research has suggested that when we can have the ability to separate those two by just creating the conditions, then we're actually more successful and more productive. So certainly be as creative as you possibly can, but let's make that workspace ours. Here in our household, my husband, I mentioned, works in radio, so he has taken over our home office, and I kind of just move around. So last week, you might have seen me in front of the fireplace. Today, I'm in another spare bedroom. Sometimes it's going to be outside. But when we have a dedicated space, my kind of space that I go to, it's my kitchen table every morning. And so that does help. As soon as I sit down, we're in the groove. It's time to work. The next piece here I encourage you to think about is your dedicated work hours. And when I say dedicated work hours, this is really up to what you have set up with your supervisors, what the expectations are of you, because right now, we're kind of in limbo. It doesn't have to be your standard 8 to 5. For maybe some night owls, they're loving the fact that we can work at night. Maybe that's the best time because the kids are asleep, or maybe during nap time, that's the only time you can Zoom. I do encourage here, as I show on the slide, to wake up early. And so despite whatever your hours are, in general, waking up early actually just motivates your body for the day. So even if you are going to be the one that's working at 8 o'clock at night and you have those expectations set out and figured out with your supervisor, great. But if you can, take some time to wake up early and just get your body in the same flow. Chances are before, you might have worked a standard 8 to 5. And if that's the case, then your body got conditioned to think, okay, I'm getting up, I'm getting ready, I'm creating my routine. It's work time, it's go time. And so we want to try and keep our mindsets as normalized as possible. You want to make sure that whatever your hours are, that you're managing your time wisely. You have to consider, when are you most productive? And this is going to differ from person to person. And this is why I think it's great that we're having the opportunity. Ray mentioned it last week when she was on the call with supervisors, is to help establish those expectations. All right, so for when I talk to Ray and Dewey, they know that I'm not a morning person. And so when it comes down to what hours I want to work, I just need to be able to communicate what works best for us, right? For each individual person, what works best. I like to chunk my time. And so if we are doing meetings, I will tend to do all my meetings in the afternoon, because honestly, that is when I'm more awake. And so I think that understanding where can you take control of your schedule and ensure that if you can chunk it all together at once, chunk it there, right? Maybe you like to take time to read in the morning. So your reading time is from these hours to these hours. Make sure whatever it is that you're going to do, if you're only going to be available via email and responding to emails from this time to this time, you have to communicate them. You have to communicate those hours and those expectations to the rest of your team. So consider chunking. All right, maybe you think about this new grand idea that you have, and you're not quite sure how long it's going to take. Estimate it. All right, estimate how long you think all of your tasks throughout the day are going to take. And then if it's something new and you're still trying to get into this groove and understand how long do things take me, record it. Right, and I think one of the big pieces that have helped me throughout this process too is identifying what my time thieves are. So what I mean by that is taking a moment to recognize, am I scrolling on Facebook too much? Are there those social, because we're all craving that social piece right now, but are there those social distractions that we have throughout our work day? Okay. You have to be able to maybe take your time to turn off the TV, to turn off the radio, to really zone in. If you're like me, that's one of the things that I have to do, because if I don't, then that becomes a time thief for me. And so start journaling those time thieves to really identify what is it that I need to change as I move forward. And this one here, getting dressed. Oh goodness. We all love our pajama pants. I get it, okay? But let's talk a little bit about it. When we talk about this getting dressed piece, this also I'm going to throw in there, make your bed, okay? There is research that suggests that if we have a certain condition that our brain it's been conditioned to know, this is our routine, this is our process. When I make my bed in the morning, right? That to me is delivering the opportunity to say, okay, sleep time, rest time, it's over. Now it's time to get to work. Same thing goes with the clothing. Okay, understand that the way you dress does determine your overall mindset. There is research that suggests that when we get up in the morning, we put on some business casual clothes. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting everyone puts on a suit and tie every day, but it will boost our confidence and it will increase our productivity, because it goes back to, again, our brain saying these clothes are for work. When we are in relaxation clothes, when I throw those pajama pants on in the evening, that's telling my body it's time to wind down. And so there are those cognitive connections to what we wear. So getting dressed in the morning, again, not saying suit and tie or all the heels, any of that. I mean, if you want to, great. I do put on makeup in the morning. For me as a woman, it helps. That helps get me in the mindset too. But it's going to help improve your productivity throughout the day. It also is going to get you prepared if your boss or your colleague reaches out at 1 o'clock and says, let's get on a Zoom meeting at 1:30. Okay? The last thing we all want is to be caught with our hair in a mess or in those horrible pajama tops during a meeting. So it will allow you to be ready for anything that happens throughout the day. And the other thing it does, if you have kids at home, in kids' minds, when they're seeing their parents get ready in the morning and go to, get ready to go to work, it's a shift in their mindset as well. It helps them recognize mom and dad are in work mode right now. They're getting ready to go to work. So even having young kids see you in your work attire will help them understand that mommy and daddy are working right now. And so it can be, from what I have read through for this training, it can be confusing. If you're in your pajama pants, then maybe you're more approachable at that time to your young kids. So Ray, any questions or any thoughts or comments that have come in right now?
Oh, we've got several comments. People are just talking and agreeing with some of these productivity behaviors about getting up or getting dressed. We had some suggestions, I like to maybe take a walk and kind of get the blood flowing a little bit as a way to transition from, the home life behaviors to the work life behaviors. So many people are agreeing just simply doing your hair and makeup for women and getting dressed, just putting on a shirt with buttons can really change your mindset.
Mm.
So I've been pushing that make your bed mentality. So it really helps kind of the mind transition. And so many of these examples are going to be very easy to transit, to keep even when we get back to the office. And so it might be a really great time to start these new productivity habits.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Ray.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually, when I first started, this was a few weeks ago, talking about getting up, going for a walk, just to get my mind in the right space. I take a commute to work every day. And so I actually would get up and I would jump in the truck and drive to the drive-through of the coffee shop down the road, just to be on the road. Now, of course, with certain restrictions in place, that's changed, but do what it takes for you, and you know you best, to really get into that work mode mindset. And give yourself a break again. I think that now is the ample time to start really focusing on incorporating breaks. We don't do this when we're in the office. If you're anything like me or half of my colleagues, I know we all eat at our desk. All right. Take 5 to 10 minutes every 60 to 90 minutes, every hour to hour and a half, right? Take 5 to 10 minutes. Set your reminders to do it. Set your timers so that you don't get caught up in that recent episode of Sons of Anarchy. All right. Set what you need to do to make sure it is only that 5 to 10 minutes, but do it every hour to hour and a half. Just getting up can rejuvenate your body, right? It starts elevating levels. Again, gets us energized. And so take some time to use those breaks, maybe to incorporate physical activity that you wouldn't have previously done while you were in the office either. Make it a habit. Right? We suggest that habits are built after doing the same repetitive thing for 30 days. Now, I'm sure we're all hopeful that we're not going to be stuck maybe staying at home for the next 30 days, but there's no reason why you shouldn't start now. Maybe get those habits started at least. So taking breaks to use the stairs. Maybe you want to do a quick exercise. I loved an idea, a card game that Ray had told me about that she and her spouse had created. And that was taking a deck of cards and writing different types of exercises on each card. So maybe your ace of spades says to do 5 push-ups, right? And then doing that for each individual set of cards. And then maybe during that break on your 5 minutes, you take a quick time to pull a card out and do an exercise, right? Quick exercise. And maybe those are things then that we can take back and incorporate when we get back to the office. And most importantly, go outside. All right, we're on a lot of restrictions right now. And I'm not suggesting that you don't adhere to any of those. What I am suggesting is that there is nothing that says we can't go outside for physical activity. So take some time, go outside, get some fresh air. It's supposed to be 80 degrees today. So take some time to embrace that. And it really helps just reset the brain altogether. I'm going to ask, as we're kind of moving through this, are there any other thoughts, Ray? Any other suggestions that people had for physical activities or things they're doing on their breaks?
I think they're really agreeing. Some are recommending some resources. Daily Dose with HR, Kim talked about, and like a morning speaker that she listened to. Some other wellness apps and things that they're suggesting. So in the chat section, they've gone on by now, but there were some suggestions for just how we might reach out and take that mental or physical break that we need.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, send those in. Everyone is hopefully seeing all of those, so you're getting some new ideas. That's what these webinars are about. You want to make sure that you're getting maybe some information, some new ideas that we can share with each other. So the last piece to this, when we talk about self-discipline, is the focusing on our top 3, right? And what I mean by your top 3 is, again, we have this whole list. I told you earlier, create your goals. We're thinking ahead, we're thinking back, we're thinking deep and across. All right, narrow it down. All right, so we need to take a moment to focus every day when we get up on the top 3 things that we want to get done. And here's the cool part is, again, you have an opportunity right now to incentivize yourself. So the way I could incentivize myself when I went, when I was going to the office every day is okay, once I get this curriculum put together, I'm going to get up and take a walk around the building. Now I have the opportunity to say, okay, once I get this curriculum put together, I'm going to go ahead and go eat an ice cream cone. Right? I'm going to go outside. I'm going to do a Zumba class, right? I can incentivize myself however I want now. The possibilities are endless. If I want to pick up a guitar, I can pick up a guitar. And so understand that you have the opportunity to control that, right? So incentivize yourself. After you've gotten one of those things done, say, I'm going to go ahead and spend now 10 minutes on starting that recent episode of Sons of Anarchy, right? Don't binge watch the entire series. You need to do it in portions, all right? We want to micro reward ourselves. We don't want to say, okay, I completed this one thing, so now I'm going to go ahead and watch an entire series on Netflix. We want to do it in small increments, right? We certainly need to maintain our productivity during this time. We have deliverables that still have to be met. So think about what that is for you, how you can incentivize yourself throughout your day with your projects. Do it every day. It could change on a day-to-day basis. And then reward yourself when you've completed tasks through those micro rewards. So what are some other ways that you've kept disciplined while you're working from home right now? If you'd like to send those in through chat, I'm going to check back in with Ray here in a second on that. But I want to get to this last piece here, just of the benefits in general of working remotely, okay? I've talked a lot today about self-discipline, and I've talked about keeping yourself motivated and all the things that you have to do. But understand that there are a lot of benefits to the opportunity we've been presented with. And a lot of times we get caught up on the not so great benefits of it. So a few of them here, right? Your office can be any kind. And if you're like me, you like to have a lot of colors and a lot of creativity and a lot of warm, fuzzy, feel-good stuff. Maybe things that I couldn't previously have in my home office, or just my work office. I can have it here. My office can be on a yoga ball in the middle of my living room. And so your office can be any kind, as long as it's that dedicated workspace. We're saving money, okay? I hope you're saving money, but your commute isn't there anymore. We're not having to spend gas on going into the office. We're making our meals at home, whereas maybe before we were inclined to run to Hardee's, because it was the closest place to our office just to grab a quick bite. So we're having an opportunity to save up, which is probably a good thing right now with the future being unknown. All right, your schedule is yours. You make it. You make it how you want it, when you want it, given there is that understanding and that those expectations still being met with you and your supervisor. And this is probably one of my favorite points on this, is that you get to learn to be more and to do more and to become more and to become independent more. And what I mean by that is I think about myself, and maybe if you're a supervisor, you have some frontline workers that you can think of that are like this. Maybe you are a frontline worker and you can relate. I got very used to and very comfortable with, if I didn't understand something, run to Ray's office or run to Dewey's office or IM them. And now, working remotely, it's really challenged me to find the answers on my own, right? We have an opportunity to be more independent, to learn more, and to take more things in, whereas maybe before we kind of leaned on others as a crutch. And so that's a benefit, right? We're growing as individuals. We get to have more efficient meetings. I don't care how much coffee and donuts you provide at a meeting. All right, I don't want to sit in there in a stuffy room for 3 hours, maybe with somebody who clicks their pen nonstop. And so we have an opportunity right now to do Zoom meetings. And from what I'm hearing from a lot of colleagues, our Zoom meetings are taking a much shorter amount of time than maybe some of those meetings would be if we were doing them in person. So we can set the efficiency tone of our meetings. I also make it a point with my team, when I know we're going to have a staff meeting, I want to go through and I want to say, here's all the things I want to talk to Ray and Dewey about today. So it makes me go through and write down everything so that I'm not reaching out to them through email a million times. So hopefully people on your team are also doing that, but it can make meetings more efficient right now. And it allows us to kind of keep in touch more effectively. Those two relate. So I'm not going in and talking to Ray every 30 minutes because I have a question on something, right? Now, when I talk to her, it is consistent with the things that I need to accomplish for the day. So a lot of benefits to working from home. I just want us to kind of keep those things in mind as we're overwhelmed by this new norm. So Ray, did we have anything come in? Other ways that people are keeping disciplined?
Yeah, we've got a lot of positive comments about liking to work from home, kind of back to the benefits. They're eating better because they have access to, a full-time kitchen, and they're not having frozen meals, no commutes. So being able to use their time more wisely. We had some people suggest that, at the end of their workday, they're already creating a list for what needs to happen the next morning. So at least it's top of mind, and then they can walk away. Being able to stay informed on technology and information and just what's going on in the community. But a lot of people are saying, for the most part, they're kind of liking it a little bit, and it's not too bad just yet. So great outlooks, great outlook.
Good, I love hearing that. Thank you, Ray. Yeah, I think the bottom line to all of this, we're in it together. That's kind of the other cool part, is it's not just something new for MTI to be doing or another department within Extension doing. We're in it together, right? That also means that our success or lack thereof when it comes to Extension as our organization is on the line, right? So we do need to be considering things like when we're making those goals and we're going through the think back, the think ahead, all of those ones we mentioned earlier. All right, what's Extension's mission, vision, and values? What are we trying to accomplish, right? Keeping that in perspective. How does your work help Extension achieve those goals? What are the expectations of your work? If you haven't set those with your supervisor yet, we got to do that. All right, take some time to ask them this week. What is it that you expect of me this week? Or what is it that you expect of me project-wise over the next couple of weeks? And then on the other end, as Ray mentioned last week in our managing employees, then it's on the supervisors to ensure we're keeping our cadence of accountability up. So what should we start doing, stop doing, all right, or look to be doing now that all of this has changed? We have ample time and ample opportunity right now to really motivate ourselves to think in a way that we've never thought before. Think creatively, think collaboratively, just think, right? We have that time. And I know some of you probably sitting at home with young kids, you're like, you don't get it, you don't get it. And I would encourage you, right? I hope that you are encouraged by the concept that when you have that time, right, we have the opportunity to continue to be versatile in what we're going to do and how we're going to deliver. So I sincerely hope that you have some of that downtime, but we're in it together, right? We're in it together. And so I want to end with this, right? I want us to understand that self-control is strength, right? We talked about discipline. We talked about the self-discipline piece, right? When we can really master our calmness here during this time, right? We get to a point where our mood's not going to shift based off what we just heard on the news. We're not letting other people control the direction of our lives. And we're not letting our emotions overpower our intelligence. And so I think it's great right now for us to kind of take that in, take a deep breath, and understand that we are in control of this. We're in control of our motivation moving forward. So if you have any questions as I finish out here, please send those into Ray. All right, I want to just revisit one more time. We have our Topic Tuesdays coming up again. April 21st is the next one. Ray will be a presenter on resiliency in the face of setbacks. That is free. Our one in May, that is 3 sessions and includes our assessment for EQ. That one does come with a cost. However, it's going to be really good. So I hope you all consider it. We are certainly going to tap into all of the different aspects and the toll that can be taken when it comes to our emotions and how we can still keep those in check, containment strategies during this time. So, Ray, did we have any other questions coming in?
I don't see any other questions right now, Brianna. It sounds like people are showing their appreciation for the good work that you're doing. And just want to remind everybody that we will be sending you a survey shortly after we conclude today, so you can give us your thoughts and feedback on the webinar. Don't forget, if you want to revisit any of this, it is recorded and probably by the end of the week should be up on My Extension Way. And I know Brianna has mentioned April, we've got another one. We've got a 3-part series coming up in May, but we are going to continue Topic Tuesdays even into June. So we're still figuring out what those topics might be. And you know, whether we're back in the office or not, we plan on doing some Zoom Topic Tuesdays. So you can look forward to seeing some of those things coming back in June. All right. I'm not seeing any questions. So just want to say thanks again for joining us, and hope to see you back April 21st for Resiliency in the Face of Setbacks.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, everyone. If you notice on your screen now, I did put up that QR code. So if you are a QR scanner, if you have one on your phone, you can scan that. It will take you directly to registration for the April 21st event. You can go ahead and get signed up for that today. We will send another mailer out later this week too. So thank you all again so much for your time, and I hope all of you can stay motivated and stay well.